welcome back to another conversation. I'm Simra, I'm the Health and Wellness Coordinator here at Colors, and today we have Harlan and Jackie, if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
I'll let Jackie go first.
I'm Jackie, I'm from Boston. I went to Temple and just graduated this summer, so yeah.
Hi, I'm Harlan Shaw. I am the Prep Program Coordinator at Philadelphia Fight, and I'm happy to be here.
I'm excited. All right, so today we're starting a new series called The Conversation on Sex, and today, episode 1, we're going to be talking about self-discovery, and it's going to be really fun, and I'm excited to dive in. Are you guys ready?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
All right, so I guess the first question that I want to throw out there is, what is sex to you, and how do you define sex?
It's a really hard question. Well, sex is a lot of things, and it's all individualized. So what is to the person? Some people don't think that oral sex is like sex, but it's technically is sex. Masturbation is sex, like all of it.
Yeah.
I like it all, and I do it all. So like, you know,
Yeah.
sex is sex.
Very true. I think it's like a very important concept of the fact that like, I feel like sex, especially as like in heterosexual relationships, is all just about like penetration, and it's like you've got a penis and you've got a vagina, and that's the only way that like sex can happen, but like sex comes in like all different forms. What do you think, Jackie?
I would agree with Harlan. I would say that's subjective. So like I have plenty of friends who have just told me their experiences, and it's like a lot different than how I would define it, but it's all in the same thing, I guess. It's just like how you personally define it and your personal experience with it, I guess, yeah.
Totally true.
Best thing I could tell you is just experiment, explore your own sexuality, and see what you like. You might like tantric sex, you might like just masturbation, you might want to just be celibate.
Yeah.
You know, figure it out.
Very true, and I think like even like sexuality comes into like terms with that, and like there are just so many factors and facets of sex that I wish like society would like dive into more. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
So yeah, totally. And like I guess speaking about sex, like do you remember like when did you first understand like what sex was? Was there an instance that happened? Not even sex, like solo sex, all that stuff, because I know like sometimes when we're young, we stumble upon websites, we stumble upon a feeling when we're like, ooh, what was that? You know what I mean? So like, what was that for you?
Well, my first acknowledgement of sex, I think, was when I was a kid, like a toddler. And I have this story that my family tells about how they would just like say, Harlan, so what is sex? And they're like, well, it's when a girl and a guy get together and they just smash and make a sandwich, and but I was pretty close, right? But I didn't start exploring my like, sexual activities until like maybe high school. I would say high school, like most kids. I won't tell you any more about that.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, that's what I don't know.
What about you? Like, when did you first understand like what sex was or what that?
I was pretty young too. I think my mom let me watch a lot of different like grown-up movies. So like watch The Hangover, watch different, also Sex and the City.
How old were you?
I don't know, whenever that came out. Like I was just like there was new episodes airing, so I was just watching them with her.
Phenomenal.
And yeah, I mean I was introduced very young, but I would say same age, around like early high school, maybe like 8th grade, 9th grade. That was the
When you
time.
had sex, yeah. And speaking of all the things like you're exposed to as a kid, like porn, and which is a bad representation of like what sex is supposed to be really like. Movies, American Pie was like really a hit, really popular when I was growing up, like in middle school, high school age. So people based all of their sexual experiences off of those movies and things like that. You know, How to Be a Player.
Yeah.
I can go on. Movies are the worst.
I would agree with you though. Like a lot of like early 2000s movies were very like sexualized, and so like I remember watching American Pie too, like other teen movies like that kind of. Yeah.
Do you guys remember that book, Hey God, It's Me, Margaret, by Judy someone?
No.
It was this book, and it was like this entire journey of this young girl. She was maybe 13, 12, and it was like she just got on her period, like she was just figuring out like what sex was, like what all this meant, and like that was I think I was in 2nd grade when I read that, And I remember I opened it up and it like, I was like, whoa,
That
it
is
opened up a
lot
whole
for
new
second
world.
grade.
I know, and then other things unfolded after that. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. Everyone's like own journey through it.
Yeah.
I think it's important. So speaking on like your introduction to sex, like do you remember a fun little question? Do you remember who your first crush was? Who it was, like what they looked like, and all that vibes?
I'm trying to think.
Necessarily like crush or just like being like,
I don't know. I
I guess
really don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely was in elementary school. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think.
I had like 3 girlfriends in elementary school, like
Did you?
in like second grade. That's the earliest thing I can remember, and they were fighting over me on like a field trip. We're on the bus.
so funny.
But oh my god, I think my crush was my teacher, probably.
Real.
Yeah.
Even like regarding crushes about like that whole, I guess my introduction to like liking someone or anything was like, I don't know, we're moving on.
Yeah,
from
like
this
I think it wasn't like a crush or anything. It was just like I wanted something that someone else had. So like my friend had a girlfriend and I wanted his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And so I took his girlfriend. That's how
Yeah.
the whole thing started with the 3 girls. So it was never really about the people that I was like crushing on, or that you would say I had a crush on. It was more so my own ego.
Just doing that.
Yeah.
Doing that.
That's so funny. So I
At
guess
least I know myself.
very true. So I guess following forward, what makes you feel safe in sex and the expression of your sexuality?
I'm letting you go first this
No,
time.
I think maybe like communication and respect. That's about like understanding and respecting people's boundaries. And like when you put it out there, you know, you should always just be receptive to whatever they're saying, and respect that. Yeah.
I have to agree with the communication, respect piece. I also want to throw in there trust. Like, if you trust the person you're with, it's more so a journey that you both are going, and you will, you have a partner, like someone that's going to have your back, and you can try to do things that you never did before. You'll be at least more willing to do that.
Totally. I think sex is like, it's like a vulnerable thing. And once you're with someone and you're sitting with them and you're engaging in this thing, like it is vulnerable. Like not only is it vulnerable physically, but like emotionally and like mentally and spiritually. Like you're with this person, and I think it's so important to have respect, mutual respect, trust. Consent is like constantly being
Consent.
thrown. Like,
Of course.
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing I
First,
feel like
number
with
one.
consent.
That's a
like I feel
baseline.
like even if you want to like touch my shoulder or touch me a certain way, be like, is this chill? Like I just think it should just be. I think like consent is just sometimes like so thrown out, and I wish like consent was more a part of like our culture regarding sex and all that stuff.
I
What
agree.
do you guys think?
I love the app that they have where you can give consent.
Yeah.
I think that's very important, especially for young men to get
Totally.
consent. And you have it all
Totally.
in writing. And then you can go through and actually break down like your do's and your don'ts. So it makes everything a little bit
Totally.
easier.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I wish like people talked about that more. You know what I mean?
Well, I wish we talked about sex more openly as a society. And,
Absolutely.
everything is the reason we have so many issues with sex and trusting people when it comes to sex is because of all the things generations before us like have put in there that made taboo. So
Definitely.
if we were more open, like I feel like it's getting better, but it's not going to be for like years before we are actually to the place where I think we will be
Totally.
really comfortable just having open conversations.
Totally, absolutely. And even like talking about sex and like all that stuff, I'm even talking about like people of color and their experience and how it's different than like other people and like their
The
introduction to
cultural side.
sex and like the disparity between that as well. And I think, these are all important factors.
Definitely.
So I guess another question is, so there's this concept that in order to have sex, like you're reaching that pinnacle point of like achieving that one sensation, which is like obviously like orgasming, right? Do you believe that sex should be surrounded around that like pinnacle moment, or do you believe that like sex is more expansive than that?
Well, whoever thinks that, they have definitely never tried edging or like any
Exactly.
like tantric sex or anything
Yeah.
like that. I think, no, I don't think that's that moment. It could be, that moment should still happen or could still happen, but leading up to it could be stretched out. And it's so many
Totally.
different
Definitely.
emotions and feelings that you'll go through, physical, mental, before you get to that point that you would
Totally.
enjoy. Yeah.
I'd agree with that. Except I think as a girl, like as a woman, like I think as a woman, like that's like the main thing about sex for women, like orgasming. Orgasming
Oh,
is.
trust me, for guys too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, for sure. But I'm just saying, like, for example, like in a heterosexual relationship, right? The girl might not orgasm, but the guy does, and that I wouldn't necessarily say that wasn't sex, but simultaneously, like, in order for it to be, I feel like when you're having sex with somebody, it should be like a balance. So both parties should be
If you're both not
yeah.
meeting
That's
that
so
point,
true.
then it's not really
That
sex.
double standard is so
Yeah,
real.
I
Like,
get you.
even like I'm thinking about like when you're having sex like with a dude, because like we're both like queer sitting here, but like when you're having sex with a dude and like the expectations when you're in it, even like like when you're getting into it, or just like the introduction level, like that conversation is just like sometimes really whack, you know what I mean? And sometimes you just want to be like, we're in this together and we're having fun, like why not both achieve something? Like sometimes it is fun to like surround something around like having an orgasm, but sometimes, most of the time, I would say that is never how it is. Like that balance is never.
No.
You know
It's
what I
always
mean?
one-sided, lopsided.
Yeah. And
sure.
if people took, or if guys took the time to actually get to know the woman better, they probably would enjoy it more.
Yeah.
Sex would be a lot easier for them to get if they were pleasing their partners, right? Yeah, and this would, again, open up the conversations to, and changing the world, our society. Because so we
Absolutely.
live that concept that, or the way that you described it, is just a very masculine focused way of doing things, which is a reflection of how our society is.
Totally.
And if we want things to change, why not change it with sex, right? We're all having
Absolutely.
fun.
Exactly.
This like heteronormative, like
Right.
like cis aspect of sex, and it's just like going at it, when in reality sex is like way more intricate and like complex, and just like
I'm sure
two
you guys
people.
don't want to be jackhammered or like just sitting there.
Not
it's
even
like,
go on.
well, what's it called? Well, like we were talking about before, like porn and everything. It gives guys especially, because that's a huge like audience for that. It's like porn paints them like an unrealistic picture of sex, and it's like there's no attention towards females at all in those usually, and it's usually just catered towards guys and like what they like. So I think that porn's also a huge thing of why like sex is just not like people are not well educated on it.
Well, you just made like something spark in my head. I didn't even think about it that way. Like that females don't really like produce porn at all.
not.
Like they're in porn. I'm sure they're in the industry, but they're not producing their own like content. I wonder what that would look like.
Yeah.
You should think about doing something.
So moving on, how has sex changed for you throughout the years?
It's changed a lot because you kind of just learn as you go.
Right.
So like when you first begin, you kind of just have a very basic idea of what it is.
Narrow,
And honestly, it's probably like, I think my first like idea of sex was literally about porn. Like it's just like an idea of like what it was, like the very bare minimum of what it is. And then as I grew up and like experienced more things, I realized it's a lot more, and it can be literally whatever you want it to be.
Totally.
So yeah.
I agree. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. As you get older, as you experience new things, as you open yourself up to trying, experimenting, as you realize what kinks you like and things like that, it's grown. And for me, it's probably grown 100 times more than what someone else. I talk about sex every day for a living. So I've heard it all. I've seen it, well, not seen it all, but I've heard it all, talked about it all. And so, like in the middle of a conversation with someone, like, I'm like, oh, well, I might want to try that or look into that a little bit more. So, yeah.
Sex is ever evolving.
It sure
like experiences, even like personality, it's just like ever evolving.
Yeah, we're always evolving as people as well, right?
So of course sex
is going to change with us.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. So speaking more on self-discovery, did your parents ever talk to you about sex, the birds and the bees, that whole action? What was your experience with that?
I think no. Like, no, to be honest, no. Like, my parents didn't talk to me about it. I kind of learned from school and the work like I was doing as a peer educator at the youth center I worked at. And through that, I had the birds and the bees talk with all of my siblings. So I'm the oldest of 6. So I had to have that talk. My mom was like, oh, go talk to your brother. And so I had to talk about condoms and have to talk about like what to expect. Yeah, I wish they would have though.
Right.
It would have been an interesting
Right.
conversation for us to have.
What about you?
No, I don't think so either. I mean, like, I think movies really introduced me to the idea of it, and then I just talked to my friends about it, and then, high school for sure. But you kind of like, since like watching those movies and stuff, you kind of just ask your parent. I asked my mom questions about it, and then she would just be honest. She wouldn't like lie to me about it or anything. She'd just be straight up with me up front. And I think that was the best thing that any parent could honestly do, rather than like trying to shelter their child from that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I feel like it's such a universal thing that like a lot of kids go through, that their exposure to sex is not through like a trusted human being. It's mostly just like, look at this person, especially in this generation, look at this person on the internet. Like I watched a lot of
Look at this thing that
YouTube.
was sit here for entertainment value, not really to educate
And
you.
it's
right.
just, yeah, it's definitely an interesting way to be brought into something.
Yeah.
What age would you guys think that someone should be taught about sex or introduced to?
I don't think that there's any set age, honestly, because I feel like the world that we live in makes it very taboo, especially America.
Yeah.
But honestly, like when you go to Europe or any other country and just like talk to other cultures, it's not. I mean, actually, let me scratch that out. Not all cultures, but like, but like it's. I just feel like the earlier that you introduce them, not in the sense of like just straight up just telling them about it, but just like introducing it to them, the less it's weird for them, or like they.
They're not
Totally.
as censored in other places in the world. Like they'll be exposed to a naked body. They could have an open
Absolutely.
conversation about that.
It's kind of like alcohol too. Like with America, like it's 21, so like without everybody like growing up, everybody wants to drink, but then drinking culture everywhere else is kind of just relaxed because everybody got the chance to kind of like learn how to drink,
Absolutely.
smart drink. Same with sex though. Like it's we should just start teaching children more like nonchalantly rather than making it, we need to have the sex talk now. Like you know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Make it serious.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I
Yeah,
don't want to do this.
Like sex exists. I feel like especially nowadays, like kids are exposed, and like if your kid comes up to you, or even just like asking your kids, like if like you know that like something might have happened, if they had a talk in school, like that certain age, like I feel like sex exists and it's constantly happening as we're like walking and existing. It should just be a thing that is talked about.
But if it is something that you can have a conversation with the child with, or whoever, the newbie, the sex newbie, it helps them because they won't get themselves into so much trouble. Like they'll feel more
Absolutely.
comfortable and confident in themselves, engaging other people when they're approached about sex. So,
Totally.
Yeah.
I just think that's like the primary like foundation of sexual education.
Right.
Like it's not a matter of exposing kids, it's just a matter of being like, this is sex, it exists, here's how to be healthy and safe
Yeah.
throughout it.
Exactly.
Rather than like stigmatizing it and attacking it.
Right.
'Cause it's inevitable. Everybody's gonna have to have some experience at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right.
Like it's gonna happen
Take
one
some of
day
the
or
pressure
another.
off of
Yeah,
them from doing it,
exactly.
because they already have pressure from their peers, and then there's the expectation that society has of what they should be doing or how they should be behaving, and then the pressure from their partner that they're having sex with, which, in my opinion, the first time you have sex with anyone, no matter what age or how often or experienced you are with sex, is bad. The first first time you have sex with anyone is bad. So just once you get over that, you can just keep going. Yeah.
Right? But moving
I
forward
do.
with, like talking about firsts and all that stuff, STDs and STIs
Okay.
is a thing that happens more often than people talk about,
Right.
especially in society.
Definitely.
And that shames and stigmatizes sex so much. So I guess like not so much talking on like individual personal experiences, but like what was that process of kind of learning what it was and maybe getting tested for the first time, and like that process and journey for you?
Yeah. I'll let you go first.
Honestly, I don't really remember too much about like sex ed. That was one of the big things about learning about STDs and STIs and all that stuff. But I'd say like it's gonna sound so messed up because it was just like elementary school. But like people would make jokes about having STDs or whatever, like, oh, he just touched me, blah blah blah. He just gave me an
Yeah.
STD,
So
you know,
real.
like things like that. And so I kind of like learned that way, just like heard about them first, and then I started being really educated on them in high school when I had like the sex ed and everything. And then as I get older in college and everything, there's a lot more sex like what's it called, spreading awareness about everything.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of just learned more about it, and yeah, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's so real. What
Agree.
about you?
I don't know. I guess I did a lot of volunteer work in high school. Had a lot of friends who had to go to a clinic. So I learned through their experiences because I wasn't as experienced sexually as they were. It's surprising that people like, you said you had sex ed, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, wow, you had sex ed in school? Because in my high school, they didn't have sex ed. It's like being cut out of the the curriculum, which is bad for multiple reasons, but you know, that's where we are. I just think that people should be able to, if people talked and communicated a lot more than they are, they would get rid of a lot of the stigma around these things. Everyone has to get tested.
Yeah.
Everyone, at least once, the probability of you having an STI is like pretty strong. At least to have once in your whole entire life, to have one. Especially in this country, because we have the highest rates. Since I'm going to throw some of my work education in there real quick. So like in this city, Philadelphia, we have the third highest STI rates in the country. So like,
Wow.
keep that in mind. Yeah, so knowing all of that, just you gotta do better. So create a safer sex plan for yourself, communicate with your partners, and try to do your best. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Stay informed and communicate.
Yeah. I think this always just like continuously stems back to the fact that this conversation around sex is like so stigmatized and shameful, which is why we're having conversations like this to destigmatize and also just like let everyone know that it's okay to just talk about sex and be like, it is what it is, it's whatever. And it's exciting and it's pleasurable and it's joyful, but we also have to be safe throughout it.
Right.
And the more that we talk about it, the more that we're able to break down these narratives that is created within society, you know what I mean? Well, that's a wrap on our first episode of Conversations of Sex. I just want to take the time to thank you, Jackie and Harlan, for coming in and exposing yourselves, but also sharing what you had to share. It was great. I learned a lot and I listened a lot, and I'm excited. So thank you so much. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Make sure to give a thumbs up, and if you like what you see, subscribe for more content.